Welcome to It Starts With You, where we cut through the noise and get real about the behaviours that shape our lives, both personally and professionally. I'm Vic O'Farrell. Let's jump in because behaviours start with you. And here we are, another episode of It Starts With You. And if you listened to any of my podcasts previously, I used to partner with another wonderful coach who we had a podcast called Put Your Own Mask On First. So if you listen to that, I am delighted that the wonderful Nikki has joined me today for this episode. As I ask all my guests, Nikki, would you like to introduce yourself, let everybody know your personality style and what it is that you do in the world?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Nikki. I currently live in Exmouth, Devon. Looking out my window at the moment, I can see the sea, and that is a very beautiful thing for me. I've lived here now for about 5 years, and prior to that, though, I was living in London. Personality-wise, it's a very interesting one. I suppose, which one?
Well, shall we start with your London personality? And then let's go to the real Nikki in Devon personality.
Okay.
Talk about London to start with.
So London, I did about 10 years in London, and there's so much I loved about living in London, but I think maybe this bit isn't London specific, but the one thing that's caused me probably the most pain throughout my life so far has been my career. And when I was in London, I think my career, it was one of those situations where it all looked great on paper. I was earning good money, I was progressing, getting promotions. And, if you were to write it down, it looks great. But essentially, I was incredibly unhappy. And I think there's probably so many people out there that can relate to this, but that constant being on the rat race, that feeling of selling your soul for somebody else. And, I might stay in a job for around 2 years, it would all come crashing to the floor, and then I'd have to go and find another one. And then it might be better for the first 6 months, but inevitably I was always finding myself back in that same space of dread and, and what I would call it is probably situational depression. So I can't actually say that I've ever been depressed, but I think I have demonstrated some of those symptoms, if you like, because of my life circumstances and because of the jobs I've done and not feeling aligned with those and how that's then impacted me. So it was actually around 2019, 2020, that dastardly time, when I was working for a really big global co-working company and was made redundant. So that was one of those things. It was the kick up the bum that I suppose I couldn't quite do for myself at that time.
Yeah.
So it really did force me out of that pattern and allowed, again, like I think that period of time did for lots of people, it gave me that opportunity to sort of reflect and actually take stock and think, right, this is an opportunity now to maybe start doing things a little bit differently. I did move to Devon at that time, although the plan, it was only, I thought, it'll be 6 months. It'll be 6 months and I'll be back in London before you know it. Because whilst I think everybody who lives in London, there may be a shelf life to that. And I think lots of people feel the need to get out of London at a certain time. I probably wasn't quite ready to leave when I did. But so be it. It happened. And that was when I decided to take my coaching qualifications and start doing things that literally brought me joy and gave me a little bit more freedom and maybe wouldn't keep me stuck in that rat race of what we call 9 to 5, but it's actually more like 7 to 8.
Yeah. It is. So context for listeners and viewers, I met Nikki when it was 2019, October, and we both got on an aeroplane to India to go and trek the Himalayas, which is quite ironic because I'm about to get on a plane on Wednesday as we're recording this, to go trek another Iceland for the fabulous charity Copperfield. And me and Nikki happened to be sitting next to each other. And can I just say, you were a very different person then, because you were all over the place. I mean, you sat on the plane and you lost your pillow, your you lost everything, and then your food turned up, and you're a vegetarian, and you got a non-vegetarian meal. So we basically played food swapsy. So you had everything out of mine that you could eat, and I had everything of yours you couldn't eat. And then when we got to the other end, you seemed to have lost your passport, but you didn't lose
That
your
was the
passport.
bad one.
You
Yeah.
misplaced your passport, and you were all over the place. Not the Nikki that I now know and love and have done for the last 5 years, because you're in a space where you need to be. So even if I had to describe your personality back then, you're very outgoing, but you'd flip between people and tasks depending on what you were doing, and you couldn't really tell which Nikki you would get. Even on our orientation day, I think you've managed to trip over your own shadow. But yeah, and then we met and we set up our own podcast, didn't we? And then you've been down in Devon now for it's probably nearly 5 years then, isn't it? Because it was
Yeah.
2000 we moved down there.
Yeah.
And you've just found yourself. You've allowed yourself the space to find yourself.
Yeah. I certainly can't say that it was a case of, move to Devon, become a coach, problem solved. Absolutely not a linear path in that sense. The funniest thing about losing my passport was, guess where it was the whole time, everyone? In my bag. But everybody had 100 women searching for it. But yes, it was in my bag the whole time. I think this stuff is really interesting. The sort of behaviors and personality side of it. I would say I'm still a little bit of a mess in that sense. Maybe I always will be. Maybe that just is who I am. Like I'm a contradiction. I am very outgoing. I come across very confident. I can speak to anybody. I can hold my own. Those things absolutely, I would say, are a solid, solid truth. But then behind all of that, there is a lot of uncertainty, a lot of imposter syndrome, that, things that I'm sure lots can relate to. But, that I suppose a little bit still of a lack of self-belief is still in there. And it's partly because of the stories we tell ourselves, and it's partly because I still probably feel like I'm finding myself in a lot of ways. Because I thought I wasn't going to move to Devon and stay here, I think the first 2, maybe 3 years were actually quite painful, because I had one foot in Devon and I had another foot in London. That constant, I want to get back to London, I want to get back to London, I want to get back to London. But I was in the process of starting a business. Cash wasn't that readily available. I didn't have the sort of freedom to just choose where I was going to live and all that kind of stuff. So I did have to hedge my bets and my risks a little bit and play things a little bit safe. And it was actually only when I really did make the decision, actually, I'm going to stay here, where that sort of allowed me then to come out the other side of that turmoil, I suppose, that moving to Devon was. But
Journey.
I would say it's still a journey. It's still a process I'm on. My career is ironically probably still the thing that causes me the most pain. Although in the last 5 years, I have found so much more clarity about who I am, what I want it to look like, and working on the beliefs that support that, so that I actually take actions to go and do it. If I look back at previous Nikki, she would never have even taken the step. Well, she might have thought, I might want to do that. The doubts and the thoughts that, told me it would never work and I couldn't do it were always loudest. So I never even really took the steps or took any actions. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that's changed.
So if there's someone listening that's thinking, I feel a little bit like that, maybe in your career or your life, talk us through the steps that you've taken yourself through to stop. Maybe it's imposter syndrome shouting so loudly, but to stop those voices becoming louder. They're always going to be there, aren't they?
Yeah.
You've managed to do that. So how have you done that?
How have I done that? I think, unfortunately, it's not that glamorous. There's no quick fix. It's not like an easy thing. It is just practice over time of choosing faith over fear. For me, I think it's some of the tools that I've used to help me do that. And actually, I haven't done this in ages, but I've been feeling the niggle again lately, is
Oh,
doing things like the journaling,
yeah.
writing down, what do I want? Find There's almost too much. But, find something online where someone's put a workbook together
Mhm.
that's going to guide you through a set of questions. You don't always know the right questions to ask yourself because you're very much stuck in your own perspectives and way of viewing the world and thoughts and so on. Our thoughts are, we have 80,000 a day, don't we? Or more than that, 90,000, 80% of those are on repeat.
Let's hit pause so I can tell you how I work with leaders and teams to turn behaviour into results. Have you got a panel session coming up? Panel guests should do more than just fill the time. They should spark change. I bring fresh, practical insights that challenge thinking and inspire action. It starts with you, and together we'll make it happen.
So, this is the sort of thing that we're battling, if you like. So I think it's just that constant practice of being able to acknowledge it in the moment when you've got a choice. I could choose this path of thoughts, which is telling me, oh, that'll get in the way. That'll be hard. You haven't got the money to do that. You've got to be careful. You've got the dog, so you can't go there. You can't get that job. So, all the blocks, all the reasons why something won't work, and deciding to go down this path instead and think, okay, well, all those things might be true, but as well as all those things being true, these are true. What if it does work out? What if I meet the right person who just opens this door and then I can open that door for that person? And it's choosing that you don't know what that path is going to look like, but taking it anyway.
Yeah,
and I don't always get it perfect, of course.
Who does? Let's face it.
Who does?
We have to be careful on social media, don't we? Because everyone just paints such beautiful pictures about how wonderful life is. Although actually sometimes I'm quite honest on my stories, because people, if they don't see me showing up every day, I do get messages of people going, "Oh, is everything okay? You've not shown up." And I'm like, when I'm not in the right space, when I've got too much going on, the last thing I'm thinking about is showing up on my stories going, "Morning," because I'm thinking I'm not in that space.
Yeah.
But you're
Yeah.
right. Our negative thoughts always shout louder than our positive thoughts. The whole, "Oh, you can't do that because," the
Yeah.
won'ts, the can'ts, the shouldn'ts, the couldn'ts. And
Yeah.
we need to just drop the apostrophe T on the end, don't we? I
Yeah.
could, I should, I would. Not I
Yes.
couldn't, I shouldn't, I wouldn't.
Yeah. And I think, it's that, everyone knows this now, but like that, it's that understanding that really the things that we're thinking about and the things that we're doing are not life or death. And so, that negative bias is to keep us alive and keep us safe. But, we can recognize now that that email isn't a saber-toothed tiger that's going to kill us. So it's just about trying to know that those negative thoughts are there for a purpose, but actually let's ground them a little bit, because in today's reality, we might not need to go into fight or flight over everything.
I've now got this meme in my head of an email turning into a saber-toothed tiger and coming out of the screen at me. It's going to eat me.
Oh, some emails I get, though, can send me through a loop. It is like it's a saber-toothed tiger.
Oh, I know, but it's actually pausing probably before we have that reaction, isn't it?
Yeah.
How many times do you open maybe a WhatsApp even, or whatever chat you're using, and you just look at it and go, "No, that's not what I said," and you go to immediately respond with your own perspectives, don't you? And it's just like, well, hold on a minute. Where was that message coming from? Because we've got to think, when we're sitting having a conversation like this, I'm reading your body language and I can hear the tone of your voice as well. There's
Mm-hmm.
all of those things that make up for it. Whereas opposed to just reading a flat text message, we will never read that in the context that it was written, because we
Yeah.
will never be in someone else's head.
It's that age-old saying, isn't it? Of there's always three versions of the truth. There's your version, there's my version, and then there's what actually happened.
Yes, there is. Although this conversation is actually the truth, because this is actually happening. And,
Yes.
and that's why we called our podcast, actually, didn't we? We called it "It Starts With You," because we'd met on an aeroplane. Those safety instructions are to put your own mask on first. Sorry, people, if you're just listening to that thinking, "Hold on a minute, this podcast is called It
Yeah.
Starts With You." Yes, you're absolutely right. This podcast is called It Starts With You, Me and Nikki had one, and it's still out there. It's still focused on it. It's called Put Your Own Mask On First, because we met on an aeroplane where the safety instructions are you put your own mask on first. And we were in that lockdown, COVID, global pandemic where you had to wear masks.
Mm.
And that feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It really does.
And it,
Even that, I was a very different person then. I'm sure you were too, to some degrees.
well, I look at behaviors and even the thing of wearing that mask and how different I know I acted the minute I put a mask on. I felt very different. And you could see other people, and you couldn't see a whole body language because and if someone's talking to you, I didn't realize how much I relied on
Yeah,
watching lips as well, to lip sync, to make
yeah.
sure that actually what I'm hearing is what someone's coming out of someone's mouth.
Hmm.
So but just talking about masking, how many times do we mask our behaviors to suit the situation that we're in?
Do you know, it's funny you say that, Vic, because I'm sure that is all the time. There's a little bit of me though that wishes I could do that better.
Oh, explain.
Yes. And the reason I say that is because how do I explain myself? So I can be quite, I don't even know what the right word is. Let's call it passionate. I can be quite expressive. My voice is very loud. Um, and if I'm feeling quite energetic or motivated by a thing, that's going to come across in how I talk. But that can be both a good and a bad thing. So
Okay.
if I'm trying to push things forward or influence people, that can be a great thing. If I'm upset or annoyed at how someone is being, what they're saying, and so on, I find that very difficult to not give it back. So, I'm not saying that I'm rude to people without cause, but if somebody is rude to me, I will probably give it back tenfold. And there's a little bit of me that has never been able to quite keep that cap down. I don't know if my ego is too big. I don't know what it is. But if I'm going to get that energy, I will give it back times 10. And it can get me in trouble.
Yeah, but I think that's more because of your belief system and your
Mm.
values. You don't like it if people cross you, and we all have a value system that some people don't know what their value system are. I do, but that's because of what I do for a living, and
Mm-hmm.
so do you. But when someone crosses a value and pushes a boundary at the same time, so if you've got something that is like a rigid, you no, do not fight me on this,
Yeah.
and somebody does challenge you on it, then you, like you say, you are going to protect your own inner feelings and truths.
Yeah.
And it is, like I say, the pause. It's taking the
Mm.
pause to go, and I talk about it, simple things like bad driving, or road rage as we call it here in the UK. How many times do you see it when, I mean, I bibbed at somebody the other day because they pulled, I was already on the roundabout, so they had to give way to me, but then they pulled on the roundabout. So I
Yeah.
just did a gentle bib just to think, did you not see me? Are you not,
Yeah.
please be aware of the other drivers on the road. Now, if that was me on the other stand, generally, most of the times now, I'm like, oh, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the verbal abuse and the hand signals I got from this other driver, which was female. I was just like, whoa, okay. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
I was just giving you a gentle warning. We
Mm.
don't stop, do we?
I think road rage is such a funny one, because when I hear that
Sorry, I'm
story,
interrupting there because road rage does not make me laugh. It's not that funny.
no, no, it's not. Because when you tell me that story about that lady, what that screams to me, and of course I don't know her, I don't know anything about that, but um, it screams to me like, oh, you've caught me out doing the wrong thing, and I can't cope with that, so I'm going to give you hell instead. That's what that makes me think of.
And
But
you're
it is,
probably right.
you're right. It is when I feel like somebody has crossed a boundary or rubbed up against a value that I do hold dear. When I, yeah, perhaps can't keep it quiet.
Yeah. But are you getting better at it? Do you recognize it?
I don't think I'm getting better at it yet, Vic. No, but it's like everything in life. It will depend on the situation.
Okay.
It really does. So some of my time at the moment, I work at a marina, and I love the job itself, and most of the people are amazing, and that's probably one of the things that I love the most is the community sort of feel around there, and everybody helps each other out and does things for each other, and that's lovely. But there are a handful of people there, to paint a bit of a picture, who might be, a little bit entitled, a little bit, that way. And it's those people at the moment, because I'm encountering them quite a lot. I'm struggling to take that pause when someone is being a little entitled and a little bit like, well, you know, coming with that energy. And so because that's showing up in my life a lot, I've got zilch for it. I've got zero. But if I were not dealing with those people, that probably wouldn't annoy me so much. So I think it's circumstantial. So sometimes I handle it better than others, but it'll depend on how much of that thing I'm getting or feel like I'm getting in that moment.
Okay, so perhaps the first time of the day that you get a bit of entitlement attitude, you're probably fine with it. But
Yeah.
if you get the next person with it and the next person and the next person, by the time person number five's come along, they're going to get the first person's and the second and third. They're going to
Yes.
get all of it, and that. So you're
Yeah.
letting it build up, aren't you?
It's a great way to explain it. Yeah.
Okay, so you need to find a release valve that person number one can just and when I come across people like that, we all do in our life, don't we? It's just like, oh, I'm just so glad I'm not you.
Yeah. Well, do you know, I think it's Mel Robbins, and I think this is gold. I think Mel Robbins, you either like her or you don't in her style, but she's just got a few like key things that have just really stuck with me over time. And one of the things that she says, and I find this gold, is just let them. Just let them. I don't have to fight every battle. No one has to fight every battle. It doesn't have to be so personal or so, you're being entitled to me. I can just let them. And then that's my choice. So rather than, that, I suppose, a feeling of letting them get away with it, it's a better choice because then it's, oh, I'm going to let you be entitled because my inner peace is more important than fighting that with you.
Absolutely. And I want you to think of that next time you're getting an entitled person that turns up and is standing in front of you, giving
Yeah.
you their entitlement. What are you going
I'm
to
just going
say
to
in your head?
let them.
Yes, I'm just going to let them. And it is a great way to think about it, but you've got to be able to take that breath and pause to
Yeah.
be able to do that. Let them.
Yeah.
And
And
that's the
because
bit that I think we miss out as human. Everything is so fast and on the go constantly that we suddenly just we how do we get that split second to go? Just
yeah. Yeah. And
let them.
because the second thing that Mel Robbins said, which I think ties into that, which also really, really helps me, and I suppose my behaviours, my personality style, and the fact that I am so willing, I'm not saying I enjoy it, but I am willing to go into conflict if I feel like it's necessary. A lot of people are scared of it. I'm not, like I say, I'm not saying I enjoy it. I still get the wobbly knees and the adrenaline and all that kind of stuff, but I'm willing. The other thing that she said that I find so helpful is just drop the sword. Drop the sword. Let them and drop the sword. And I think for me, those two things are the perfect sentences in that moment to take the breath. Oh, let them, because I'm going to drop my sword.
Do you carry a sword with you regularly?
The proverbial sword.
I now picture you. I think you've moved to Devon. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But do you find a difference in people's behaviours from London to Devon? The work, rat race that you were on.
Mm, in certain ways, yes. In certain ways, no. I mean, I'm probably not the best person to say it because I've not worked many places in Devon, whereas in London, I spread across a lot. I think obviously things here are slower. It is less corporate. It is, but that's both a good and a bad thing. Sometimes I see how things run. Like, for example, I've been in the position at the marina for nearly 3 years. I've never had a one-to-one. I've never had a catch-up. I've never had an appraisal. I still haven't even been told that I've passed my probation. So it
I think
is
you
very,
have.
very different.
You've been there for 3 years. You're still there. They let you run the place, so I think you're doing all right.
I take it I'm doing all right, yeah.
Yeah,
So, but that's the sort of difference. That sort of structured London way of doing things is not so much over here,
yeah,
down here.
down there, but you'll love
But
it.
then my commute to work at the moment is a little walk along the beach,
A little bimble.
a little bimble along the beach. So I can't complain with that.
No, and that does sound like heavenly, especially when, and if any of you are listening thinking, oh, I have to say that we are global. This isn't just a UK podcast now. I've looked at my stats.
Excellent.
I'm like, oh my God, I've got people listening all over the world.
Brilliant.
And it is that actually what can I put in my daily commute to bring me joy? And so even when I get on the train and go up to London to deliver a workshop or a masterclass, do you know what? I actually love the balance of spending time in our great capital city
Yeah.
because then I also appreciate where I live in the
Mm,
country. And
yeah.
it's a balance of both of it. And if you're not, if you live and work in London and you're listening to this, or any big major city, New York, Sydney on the other side of the world, Toronto in Canada, you might think, well, actually, how do I get away with it? What you need to do is make sure that you do find time in your busy calendar to take those breaks and
Hmm.
reset and recharge.
Yeah, totally agree. I think, I've got a friend down here who works for the Ministry of Defence. So she spends half her time in London per week and the other half of her time down here in Devon. And I think that is just so lovely because she's there getting to, experience the capital and the just wonderfulness that is, but then gets to come away, And one of the things that we do down here is we go rowing. So,
Mm.
in one week she's on a busy tube going to wherever. And then, 3 days later, she's out on the water rowing a boat. So I think that is a lovely balance.
I think that sounds like a beautiful balance. So someone like me who grew up by the sea in Brighton, I think that sounds like a beautiful balance
Yeah.
of being by the sea and being in London. And I get it. Some of you listening going, yeah, well, that's fine, but I don't have that opportunity. And I get some people just don't have that opportunity. But what you do need to do is find yourself time in your diary to give it to what brings you joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say maybe that's the biggest thing of actually the move down here was finding a better work-life balance and being able to, for me, it's nature, being outdoors, being outside. That is something that will always ground me, bring me back to a bit more peace. I'm sure a lot of people feel like that. So yeah, I got a dog. I'm out walking my dog all the time. I'm out rowing, doing the Southwest Coast Path, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm the sort of person these days, I like to be in bed by 9. I don't need the big bright lights of London anymore. I really enjoy coming to visit, And sometimes I miss the variety and the opportunity of things that are going on in London. But then I remember that I used to have to be on the Central Line at 7:30 a.m., in people's armpits and doing all that kind of stuff. And I actually used to love getting the tube, but just not at rush hour. Like I really enjoyed the tube, but in rush hour, it's not okay. I don't know if it's
Other
different
people's
these days.
no, other people's armpits are never nice
No,
on the
and
tube
so
or anywhere, to be fair.
just start for me. Starting the day like that was just no good. It was just no good. I'll get to work and I'm already hot, sweaty, angry, annoyed, overwhelmed, overstimulated, and that's what the foot I was starting the day on really.
And that, like you say, is not a good place to start. That's where you end up looking at the lights of burnout and things like that. It's just that actually, what can I do to make sure that my day starts with joy? And whether that is the beach, the countryside, a mountain, fresh
A little
air,
bit of yoga,
bit
could
of
be anything.
yoga, whatever it is that you do, start your day with joy so that when you actually get to your desk, and whether you're working from home or in an office, start your day with the right headspace and your day will bring you joy.
Yeah. And even if you have got to get the tube and you hate it and it's rush hour and it's sweaty and it's the Central Line and it's awful, make sure you've got the best playlist that you could possibly have to stick in your ears and, have a little internal dance as you go, or external. I would do external, but
Yeah,
some
but
people might be shy.
well, it's not that. It's some people might stare at you, mightn't they? Or you could be listening to this podcast. Maybe this is the first one you've listened to and thought, oh, this has been upbeat and inspirational. I might go and listen to the others.
Yes.
Amazing. Which is probably a good place to end this conversation. What would be the one piece of advice that you would give to listeners thinking of bringing peace, harmony, and balance to your life?
What a great question. My one piece of advice would be, it can be quite difficult to do, but to really practice learning how to create stillness, both in your mind and your body, because I think if you're lacking in answers, if you're lacking in clarity, if you're lacking in direction, if you're not sure about things, the answers don't always come from just carrying on through the motions. So it's about learning how to go quiet and go still, and therefore hear your inner guidance a little bit stronger and hear your intuition and your gut instinct. From that point, you can perhaps start taking little baby steps in the right direction towards whatever will bring you more peace, more happiness, more joy, more fulfillment. But also, I suppose a secondary bit of advice to that is then you will have to take action. So stillness is great to get the answers and the clarity that you need, but the only way to truly build is to take action. And that can be the smallest little baby steps ever, but you're going to have to take action.
And I think that's the thing, isn't it? The only person that can take the action to make the change is you.
Yeah.
And that's why this podcast called It Starts With You. Nikki, thank you for being my guest. If you want to get in contact with Nikki or find anything more about her, look in the show notes. All her details will be in there. But for today's episode, it's goodbye from me.
And it's bye from me. Thank you so very much for having me. It's been a pleasure as always.
Lovely to see you. Well, that's today's dose of truth. Now go make it happen, because behaviour drives behaviour. And behaviour starts with you.